Of supporters for any part of those 32 years has not been easy. Because of that disease known as the Colliwobbles, they lost 8 grand finals, and last night was really a wake for all that failure. In some amazing scenes, 20,000 fans gathered at the Magpies' home ground, Victoria Park. They yelled themselves hoarse, and when the flag-winning seniors turned up later in the evening, there was a near riot. Today it was still going. Magpie captain Tony Shaw arriving back to introduce his bed partner.
It's the greatest thing I've ever slept with in my life, what's up?
Love has stopped beating.
For the winners of the 1990 AFL Grand Final.
Good evening. A long march to a dream hit Collingwood fans throughout the country today. Yesterday, the siren sounded soon after 5 and the players were drenched in a spray of champagne, the bubbles bursting 3 decades of grand final wobbles. Ian Hislop has spent a night and day in the Magpie heartland.
After every good party, there's a clean-up, and judging by the mess at Victoria Park this morning, it was one hell of a bash. No magpies, but plenty of hungry seagulls, and heaps of beer. A weekend order by the club of 288,000 cans to be consumed because of something that happened yesterday at 5 past.
Let's hear it for Collingwood. Hip hip! Hip hip!
The historic win sent the fanatical supporters onto the roads, headed for the dozens of parties in Magpie territory. Traffic in Johnson and Hoddle streets crawled for most of the night as celebration spilled onto the streets. But Victoria Park was the focus of the celebration. 30,000 euphoric fans whose long suffering was over. Their jubilation testimony to their fanaticism. The crush was too much for some. The well-oiled climbers sent to new heights because of the win. Indoors, a couple of old cheerleaders reflected.
I still can't believe it.
I can.
Oh,
because we've strived for so long for this premiership.
scream for it.
Over in Bomber territory, some sought comfort in the arms of fellow supporters. Others just drank to forget.
I would like to win the grand final, but that's the way it goes. You've got to take the good and the bad. Win some, lose some.
In the city, Victoria's team members, clutching the cup, finished up dinner to board buses for the trip to the home ground. How did Coach Lee Matthews feel?
Euphoric, I think's the word. Euphoric.
Their arrival sent the huge crowd into a frenzy. Heroes who'd set the record straight after a 32-year drought. One after one they were introduced to the fans, and one after one the cheers were deafening. In the end it was Collingwood forever. The celebration had its downside, with police arresting 69 people for drunkenness, and they reported a series of drink-related accidents. But if last night's celebrations weren't enough, they continue today with a family picnic at the ground. Another huge crowd, and the players again taking their bows. For many of the Pie fans, exhausted from the emotional high of the victory and feeling the effects of some heavy hell-raising, a Monday return to work was not on the agenda.
Oh, it's got to be a public holiday tomorrow, special occasion, 1958 Grand Final. We're loving it. Look at us all here.
There couldn't be anything better than a public holiday for Collingwood. It's marvellous.
Well, it should be. It's a public holiday for eternity, mate.
For eternity?
Eternity, mate.
What about a sickie? You going to have a sickie tomorrow?
I have a sickie for the next fortnight.
You won't be on his own.
So no longer will they be known as the Colliwobbles, for this 1990 championship team, so dear to its legion of fanatical supporters, has snatched its place in history. Deep in Magpie territory, Ian Hislop, 7 Nightly News.
And after the break, America's
planning for the Bombers' retribution following their 48-point loss to Collingwood in yesterday's grand final. Sandy Roberts reports.
When the final siren sounded yesterday, the celebrations began for Collingwood and the soul-searching started for Essendon.
I thought we lacked strength yesterday, and I think that's a part of having to build that into players when they come into a club.
I don't know whether it was the occasion or, maybe we weren't hungry enough and Collingwood were, but we definitely played like that.
At this stage, Essendon is farewelling two of the club's great finals players, 1984 Norm Smith medalist Bill Duckworth and 32-year-old 202-game veteran Paul van der Haar have both announced their decision to retire. Meanwhile, after a night of coming to terms with victory, Collingwood skipper Tony Shaw today spoke about the fear of defeat.
I think it was really great. You know, I think getting to a grand final and to lose again, I think the boys felt it and they just didn't want to be in that situation.
The 6 players who were reported on 13 charges during a wild quarter-time brawl will not know their fate for some time. The 2 teams leave for overseas matches on Wednesday and the tribunal will sit when they return. Sandy Roberts, 7 Nightly News.
Port Adelaide made it a Magpie weekend double when the South Australian Pies won the AFL Grand Final against Glenelg. Port put legal battles and a turbulent year behind them to record a 15-point win for a hat-trick of flags. Drew Morford reports.
Magarey medalist Scott Hodges started the game needing 5 goals to break Rick Davies' all-time record. His mark produced the first of the game after 12 minutes. But full forward at the other end, former Brisbane Bear John Fidge kicked 3 in the first quarter to give Glenelg a 3-point lead at the first change. No goals were kicked for 18 minutes until Hodges kicked 2 in 90 seconds to bring up his 150th for the season. But with the record in sight, he was crashed in a pack, damaging his knee, and was helped to the bench late in the second quarter. His injury seemed to fire Port, who finished the term with 3 goals in 2 minutes to lead by 4 goals at half-time. Stephen Williams from 60 metres out.
9 minutes, he goes towards goal, it's unprotected again, and they kicked another one!
Port maintained their lead in the third quarter, and young Essendon signing Gavin Wanganeen showed why the Bombers stitched him up. Hodges played the second half with knee bandaged and finished with 6 to break the record.
And he is the record holder for South Australian football.
Port won their 3rd successive premiership and coach John Cale his 7th. They put the court battles behind them.
It was laid to rest today, but none of the mourners were sorry to see it go. Andrew Anderson attended the funeral of the Colliwobbles.
Colliwobbles lived around Collingwood for 32 years, but died suddenly after the final siren at the MC.